Every text he sends you is like a puzzle piece, small on its own, but powerful when you know how to put it all together. You've probably asked yourself, what does this even mean after reading one of his short, vague, or overly enthusiastic messages? One moment he's texting you non-stop, and the next you're staring at your phone wondering why he's suddenly gone cold. Sound familiar? You're not crazy for reading into his messages. The truth is, men communicate more than they realize through texting. It's all about knowing what to look for. In today's digital dating world, texting has become the main way people connect, flirt, build attraction, or unfortunately pull away. That's why learning to read a man's mind through his texting habits isn't just helpful, it's essential. A guy can say one thing but reveal something completely different in the way he texts. The speed of his replies, the words he chooses, the emojis he uses or doesn't, and even the time of day he reaches out. These aren't random, they're signals. What most women don't realize is that men tend to be more honest in their patterns than in their actual words. And when you're emotionally invested, it's easy to overlook these subtle red flags or miss the green ones that show real interest. That's where this video comes in. We're going to break it all down using insights inspired by Matthew Hussey's proven dating principles. So if you've ever felt confused, anxious, or misled by a guy's texts, you're in the right place. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what his messages are really saying, and more importantly, how to respond like the high-value woman you are. There's one texting habit that stands above the rest when it comes to revealing a man's true intentions, and it's not about how many emojis he uses or how clever his messages are. It's consistency. That's the one texting habit that quietly tells you everything you need to know about where you stand in his life. Think about it. Anyone can send a sweet text once in a while. A guy can call you beautiful, throw in a flirty comment, or even message you late at night when he's bored. But words are easy. What's not easy is being consistent. Showing up regularly, checking in without a hidden agenda, and making you feel like you're a priority, not an option. That's where the truth lives. If he's truly interested, his texting behavior won't be a roller coaster. It'll feel stable, reliable, and natural. Inconsistency, on the other hand, is a red flag that often gets ignored. Why? Because inconsistency is usually dressed up in excuses. He'll say he's been super busy, he forgot, or he meant to reply. And while life does get hectic, a man who genuinely cares will always make time, even if it's just a quick message to say he's thinking of you or can't talk right now. Consistency is never about flooding your phone. It's about making an effort regularly and without prompting. Now, here's where it gets deeper. Inconsistent texting isn't just about communication style. It often reflects emotional availability. A man who can't be consistent with his texts is usually someone who struggles with commitment or clarity about what he wants. He might be hot and cold because he doesn't know how he feels, or worse, he does know, and he's keeping you just interested enough to stick around without offering anything real. Either way, it's not your job to fix it. It's your job to notice it and protect your energy. Consistency also builds emotional safety. It allows you to relax into the connection instead of constantly questioning it. When a guy texts consistently, you don't have to overthink. You're not obsessing over when he'll respond or if you said something wrong. That kind of clarity creates space for attraction to grow in a healthy, secure way. And that's the kind of relationship you deserve. Some women fall into the trap of romanticizing inconsistent texting, telling themselves that he's just not a phone guy, or maybe he's nervous. But remember this, men are creatures of habit. If he can show up consistently for things that matter to him, his job, his hobbies, his friends, he can do the same for you. When he wants to, he will. It's that simple. So if you're stuck wondering what a guy really feels about you, don't just look at what he says. Look at how often he says it. Is there a pattern? Is he initiating just as much as you are? Does he disappear for days and then suddenly pop back in like nothing happened? Those aren't signs of someone who's emotionally invested. They're signs of someone keeping their options open. Pay attention to the consistency of his effort, not just the intensity of his words. A guy who texts you regularly, follows up, and makes time for conversation is showing you where his priorities are. And when you see that, you don't have to guess, you'll know. In this video, we'll show you how to recognize consistent behavior, differentiate it from love bombing, and respond with confidence when a guy's texting habits don't match his words. Once you spot the patterns, you'll never waste time on mixed signals again. We've all heard it before. Sorry, I've just been really busy. It's one of the most common excuses guys use when they've gone MIA or suddenly become distant over text. But how do you know if he's genuinely overwhelmed with life or if he's simply not that into you? That question can create a spiral of overthinking, especially when you're emotionally invested and trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. The key is learning to separate facts from feelings and patterns from excuses. Here's the truth. Everyone is busy. We all have jobs, responsibilities, family, stress, and unexpected situations. But when someone values you, they don't let busy be the reason they go silent. A man who's into you will find a way to stay connected, even if it's something as quick as can't talk right now, but thinking of you. When a guy is truly interested, he doesn't want to risk losing your attention. He'll create time, not just find it. On the other hand, a guy who's not that into you will use busyness as a buffer to keep distance. He might be polite, even charming when he does text, but there's no urgency, no consistent effort. You're always left guessing when you'll hear from him next. That's not real interest. That's convenience. It means he's keeping you around as an option, not prioritizing you as someone meaningful. What makes this especially confusing is that busy can sound so believable, and sometimes it's even partially true. But here's where the difference lies. It's not just about what he says. It's about what he does. If he goes days without checking in, makes no effort to reschedule a cancelled date, or only texts when it's convenient for him, that's not someone who's trying to build something real. That's someone who's emotionally unavailable or simply indifferent. The other trap many women fall into is overcompensating. You start texting more, initiating conversations, being extra understanding of his busy schedule, and making excuses on his behalf. But that just creates an uneven dynamic where you're doing all the work and he's doing the bare minimum. It sends the message that you'll stick around even when he doesn't show up for you. Instead, you need to take a step back and observe. If he says he's busy, that's fine. People do get overwhelmed. But the next question is, does he circle back? Does he follow through? Does he make you feel like you still matter in the middle of his chaos? If the answer is no, that tells you everything. This isn't about being demanding or expecting instant replies. It's about emotional consistency and effort. A man who wants you in his life will show you, even on his busiest days, that you're a part of it. And if he doesn't, you have to stop making excuses for him and start asking yourself if this is the energy you truly want to receive. In this section of the video, we'll break down the clear behavioral signs that show whether he's genuinely swamped or just politely fading out. Once you understand the difference, you'll stop chasing clarity from him and start claiming it for yourself. When it comes to texting, timing isn't everything, but it does say a lot. How quickly or slowly a guy responds to your messages can quietly reveal more about his feelings than the words he actually types. You've probably been there, waiting hours or even days for a reply, all while questioning what you said, what it means, and whether you're overreacting. The truth is, response time isn't just about schedules. It's about priorities, interest, and emotional investment. Let's start with fast replies. If a guy consistently responds quickly, it's a strong indicator that you're on his mind. It doesn't mean he's clingy or doesn't have a life. It means he's engaged, he wants to keep the conversation going, he enjoys talking to you, and he's putting in the effort to make sure you feel seen and heard. Quick replies are often a sign of enthusiasm. They show that he's available, not just physically, but emotionally. That doesn't mean he has to reply within seconds, but when someone genuinely cares, they don't leave you hanging unless they have to. Now, on the flip side, what about slow replies? Not every delayed text is a sign he's pulling away, but patterns matter. If you notice he used to reply quickly and now takes much longer with vague or dry responses, it could be a sign that something has shifted emotionally. He might be losing interest, feeling unsure, or distancing himself on purpose. Often, when guys aren't sure how they feel, they'll create space instead of communicating directly. This shows up as delayed texting, shorter messages, or forgetting to respond altogether. What's important to note here is consistency. Does he only reply fast when he wants something? Does he ignore your messages for hours but suddenly reply right away when you stop texting? That's not about feelings. That's someone who wants to manage your emotional availability while keeping his options open. If his response speed changes based on how much you're pulling away, it's not a reflection of genuine interest. It's a reaction to feeling like he's losing your attention. There's also the breadcrumbing factor. Some guys will intentionally delay replies as a strategy. They think being hard to reach makes them seem more desirable or in control. But if a guy is playing games with his reply times, that's a red flag, especially if it's creating anxiety or confusion for you. A man who is secure in his feelings won't use silence as a tool. He'll communicate clearly without making you feel like you are chasing him. And then there's the emotional undertone. Fast replies often carry warmth, emojis, enthusiasm. Slow replies, especially cold or one-word responses, tend to signal disinterest or detachment. It's not about demanding constant texting. It's about matching energy. If you're putting in time, care, and interest, his replies should reflect that back. Ultimately, the speed of his reply doesn't define your worth, but it does reveal his mindset. If a guy is genuinely interested, you won't have to second guess how long he'll take to respond. He'll show up because he wants to, not because you reminded him. And once you start noticing these patterns, you'll stop wasting time waiting and start focusing on who's truly showing up for you. Emojis might seem like harmless little icons, but when it comes to dating and texting, they can say more than an entire paragraph. That one heart emoji, the laughing face, or even a casual thumbs up, it's all part of a deeper communication game, especially for guys who aren't always the best at expressing how they feel with words. So what do those emojis really mean, and how can you tell the difference between friendly flirting and genuine emotional connection? Let's start with one of the most common ones, the face. When a guy sends this, especially in response to something you've said, it often means he's trying to keep things light and fun. It can signal that he's enjoying the conversation and wants to create an easygoing, playful vibe. But if this is the only emoji he ever uses, it could mean he's keeping the interaction surface level. He might not want to dive into anything too deep emotionally. Is his way of saying, I'm here, but I'm keeping it casual. Now, take the heart eyes emoji. This one is more loaded. If a guy sends this regularly in response to your photos, compliments, or even just a sweet message from you, it often indicates physical attraction and admiration. But context matters. Is he using it alongside actual effort, like asking questions about your day or making plans to see you? Then it likely reflects real interest. If he only drops it when you send a cute selfie and never follows up with anything meaningful, he may just be using it to keep you on the hook. Another one to watch is the fire emoji. This typically shows that he's into your look or your energy. It's about attraction. But again, attraction without action means very little. If he's always hyping you up with, but can't be bothered to hold a real conversation or get to know you beyond your appearance, you might just be a digital ego boost for him. On the flip side, if a guy uses emojis like, ooh, or even the soft smile consistently, that usually shows a deeper level of emotional warmth. These aren't just flirty. They tend to reflect care and connection, especially if they're part of a larger message where he's expressing appreciation, encouragement, or making you feel emotionally supported. These kinds of emojis, when used consistently and not just randomly, often come from someone who's emotionally engaged. Now, let's talk about minimal or zero emoji use. Some men simply aren't into them. And that's okay. The key is whether the tone of their messages still feels warm and engaging. If a guy never sends emojis but consistently texts you with care, interest, and attention, the lack of symbols doesn't mean a lack of emotion. But if his texts are dry, short, and emoji-free, and you're the one doing all the work to keep the vibe alive, that's a different story. Ultimately, emojis are just one piece of the puzzle. What matters most is how they're being used. Are they enhancing the connection or masking a lack of depth? Are they flirty and consistent or just thrown in for effect when he's trying to get your attention? When you start paying attention to not just what emojis he sends, but why and when, you'll start to see the emotional clues hidden in plain sight. It might seem harmless, a simple "hey" text popping up on your screen. In fact, it might even give you a little rush of excitement, especially if you've been waiting to hear from him. But here's the truth. When a guy texts you just "hey," especially on a consistent basis, it's not a cute sign of interest. It's a subtle red flag. And once you understand what's really behind these kinds of messages, you'll stop seeing them as harmless and start seeing them as a signal to reassess how much effort you're accepting. The problem with "hey" texts is that they're completely low effort. They require no thought, no emotional investment, and no intention. A guy who sends "hey" is essentially tossing you a breadcrumb. just enough to get your attention without actually giving you anything to work with. It's a vague, open-ended message that puts the responsibility on you to keep the conversation going. He's not leading, not engaging, and definitely not trying to build a connection. He's testing the waters to see if you'll bite. What's worse is that a lot of women, especially when emotionally invested, will respond enthusiastically just to keep the dialogue alive. They'll ask questions, share updates, try to spark something from nothing. And guess what? That only teaches him that minimal effort is all he needs to give to stay in your life. It trains him to believe that you'll keep showing up even when he's not really showing up for you. Another layer to consider is timing. When do these hey texts usually come in? Late at night? Randomly after days of silence? Right when you've stopped texting first? If so, there's a good chance they're not coming from a place of genuine interest, but from boredom, loneliness, or the desire for a quick ego boost. It's a digital version of just checking if you're still available. That's not connection, it's control. Now, to be fair, everyone sends a casual hey from time to time. The red flag appears when it becomes a pattern. If all or most of your conversations start with a hey, and there's never any real intention behind them, no effort to ask about your day, no follow-up questions, no plans to meet up, then it's not about connection. It's about convenience and hoping you'll do the rest. You deserve more than breadcrumbs. You deserve someone who's excited to talk to you, who opens conversations with real curiosity or affection, not lazy one-word openers. A man who's genuinely interested will put in the effort to engage you. He'll ask questions, start real conversations, and make you feel like you're more than just a backup plan or a late night option. So the next time you get a hey text, pause before you respond. Ask yourself, is this all he ever sends? Is he showing up with intention? If not, it's time to stop pouring your energy into someone who's not giving you anything real. Because when a man truly wants you, he won't settle for one-word texts. He'll show up with clarity, effort, and purpose. Breadcrumbing texts can feel incredibly confusing. One minute he disappears, the next he pops back into your messages with something vague like, hey, you up? Or thinking about you. These messages are designed to keep you hooked, not to build a real connection. Breadcrumbing is when someone gives you just enough attention to keep you emotionally invested, but not enough to create anything meaningful. And if you've been on the receiving end, you know how emotionally draining it can be. So how do you respond without falling into the trap? The first step is recognizing breadcrumbing for what it is: emotional manipulation disguised as casual interest. These texts are usually sporadic, shallow, and often come without follow-through. He doesn't make plans. He doesn't ask real questions. He doesn't build emotional intimacy. Instead, he drops in just enough to stir your feelings and see if you'll still respond. When you receive a breadcrumbing text, your initial instinct might be to reply quickly, hoping it leads to something deeper. But here's where you take back your power. Don't reward low effort with high effort. If someone gives you the bare minimum, they should get the bare minimum or nothing at all. One powerful way to respond is with neutral disinterest. For example, if he texts, hey stranger, after ignoring you for a week, a response like, hey, been busy with things that matter, subtly communicates that your world isn't revolving around his inconsistency. It's classy, confident, and clear. You're not sitting around waiting for him. You can also use light-hearted boundary setting. If he drops a vague thinking about you, try, oh, that's sweet. Are you just checking in, or do you actually want to catch up properly? This puts the ball in his court without you chasing him. If he's serious, he'll make an effort. If not, you've exposed his game without drama. Another solid response is no response at all. Silence can be louder than any comeback, especially when you've seen a pattern of breadcrumbing. Ignoring texts that don't serve your emotional well-being is a form of self-respect. And if you've been giving someone multiple chances to show up fully, choosing not to respond can often be the clearest message of all. I'm not available for scrap. It's also important to remember how you respond trains people how to treat you. If you continue to engage with half-hearted messages, you're signaling that you're willing to accept them. But when you set a higher standard by either replying with confidence or choosing not to engage, you shift the dynamic. You show that you're not here for games. You're here for something real. In the video, we'll walk you through real-life breadcrumbing examples and give you ready-to-use responses that are clear, empowered, and still feminine. Because being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and setting boundaries doesn't make you too much. It makes you a woman who values herself enough to only accept effort that matches her worth. Matthew Hussey's approach to texting with confidence is all about flipping the script, taking back your power, setting the emotional tone, and stepping into your worth without playing games. So many women get caught in the trap of overthinking every text, waiting anxiously for replies, or trying to decode one-word responses. But Matthew's strategy is simple and game-changing. When you lead with self-worth, you naturally inspire genuine connection and effort. The core of his strategy is this: don't text to get a response. Text to express who you are. That subtle shift changes everything. When you send a message just to get attention or validation, you're already giving your power away. But when your texts come from a place of calm confidence, clarity, and fun, you become magnetic. You stop chasing and start attracting. According to Matthew, confident texting begins with intentionality. You're not sending random hey messages or long emotional paragraphs trying to prove your value. Instead, you're expressing interest without attachment to the outcome. You might say, I just passed that new coffee shop you mentioned. Looks awesome. You've got good taste. It's playful, light, and opens the door for connection without putting pressure on him to respond in a certain way. Another key pillar in Matthew's approach is mirroring effort. If he's being consistent, engaging, and showing up, match that energy. But if his replies are vague, delayed, or low effort, don't overinvest. Confident women don't fill in the emotional gaps left by someone else. They hold space and let the other person rise to meet them. If he's showing interest only when it's convenient for him, you don't double down, you gracefully step back. Matthew also emphasizes the power of non-reactivity. When a guy pulls back or goes cold, most women panic, wondering what they did wrong. But confidence means not letting his inconsistency define your value. Instead of reacting with needy follow-ups or silence filled with resentment, you can respond with warmth and boundaries. A simple, you've been quiet lately, everything good, is calm, mature, and clear. If he doesn't step up after that, you move on with dignity. Another tip he offers is to be the vibe you want to attract. That means your texts should reflect the kind of relationship you're looking for. Positive, emotionally available, and fun. Avoid sarcasm, passive-aggressive messages, or guilt-tripping. Instead, lean into charm, authenticity, and a light touch of flirtation. You're not trying to impress, you're inviting him to connect with the real you. And perhaps most importantly, Matthew reminds women to never let texting replace real connection. If a guy is all talk and no action, if he texts but never makes plans, that's not a relationship, that's entertainment. Confident women use texting as a bridge to in-person intimacy, not a substitute for it. In this part of the video, we break down how to use Matthew Hussey's mindset to transform your texting game from anxious and overthinking to empowered and irresistible. Because the moment you start treating yourself like someone worth showing up for, the right men will start doing exactly that. Being a high-value woman isn't about playing hard to get or following a script. It's about embodying self-worth so deeply that you naturally attract the respect, attention, and love you deserve. The truth is, the way a man texts you can reflect how he sees you, but even more importantly, how you respond shows how you see yourself. And that's where your true power lies. A high-value woman knows that her time, energy, and attention are precious. She doesn't chase